everybody, Milk Tea here, and I'm going to show you how to build a node network in Black Desert Online. Node networks in Black Desert Online are used to obtain materials for cooking and alchemy. In order to obtain a node, you need to invest contribution points. Each node will have a different value of contribution points that are needed in order to obtain the node. Recent updates have allowed you to remove contribution points while the energy invested in the node still remains. This is a great benefit for those that want to move around their contribution points or nodes in their networks without losing the energy they've already invested. I'm going to go ahead and divest all of the contribution from my node network, and we will go from the ground up on how you build a node network depending on what you want to do in Black Desert. First step in starting your node network is choosing your home city. For me, my home city is Heidel. I find it to be in the center of everything, and I like to use the storage here because Heidel, as you can see, has a large network of storage that you can choose, which allows you to max out your storage without investing any pearl items into it, making it a perfect city to start out as your home base. The other city that many will choose to be a home base is Velia, due to the same reason of having multiple locations for storage, as well as Calpheon City over here. Calpheon also has lots of options for storage, so you can get the most bang for your buck without spending any money on investing in your storage slots. Nodes in Black Desert come in a variety of different forms. Let's go over the different types of nodes so you can better understand how investment works. The first type of node is a city. A city is a main location within Black Desert and does not require any contribution points in order for you to invest into it. They're automatically invested at the start of the game. There's nothing that you need to do besides discover them. Within the city themselves, though, there are housing districts. Housing is used for investing into storage, doing crafting of specific items, as well as lodging for workers, such as here. This will allow you to get more workers into that city, and you can have more nodes invested. There's also investment banks as well as guild housing, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to go into that because we will not be using any of those features, nor do most people. The other type of housing that you can find within the cities is residences. These are houses that you can purchase. Within the residence, you can do cooking and alchemy. So you're going to want to purchase a residence, and for your main city, you're going to want to probably invest as much as you possibly can into the storage so that you are ready to go with all of your items filtering into your main city. The next type of node is a fort. A fort is usually a location that it requires only contribution points, but it is a major outpost along the road to any location within Black Desert. They do not have any production nodes connected to them. They usually have NPCs that you can purchase things from and require a little bit more contribution than your standard node would. The next type is a node, a production node. The production nodes will have smaller nodes attached to them that you can invest in that allow you to gain materials used for production and crafting. This is primarily what node networks are for, is for the production nodes. In order to connect a production node, you must connect it to a main city with a worker. So if I wanted to connect to Heidel Quarry in order to obtain Powder of Flame, which is used for alchemy, I would first need to connect to Northern Guard Camp, investing my contribution, and then I would need to connect to Heidel Quarry. And then I would need to connect to the production node within Heidel Quarry, which is one more contribution point. Then from there, I can assign a worker to that node. Now, when assigning workers to the node, you want to use a worker that is located in the city closest to the node. You also want to use a worker that is best suited for your playstyle with Black Desert, as well as the type of node. Example here is I play a lot. I'm on all the time. So for me, a goblin worker who needs to be fed more often, however, will produce more materials quickly, is a better choice for me. Where somebody who does not play as much might want to use a giant or human worker, which does produce a little bit slower, but does not need to be fed as often. I'm going to go ahead and assign an artisan goblin worker to this outpost here. Destination, it is going to Heidel is where I want the materials to go to. This is a new feature. You can actually change the destination of where you want your materials to go to, so they're not defaulting back to your main location. But I'm going to select Velia actually as my destination, because that is where all of my materials and items go to. Then I'm going to change the amount of times that he is going to produce this item to maximum, as I want him to continue go to this node and produce these items as long as he's being fed. You just want to make sure you have all of your destinations set for your worker. So again, I'm going to choose an artisan goblin. I'm going to change the amount of times he's going to work, and I'm going to change the destination of the work to Velia. Then I'm going to go ahead and start the work, and he is going to continue producing copper and powder of flame for me from this node in the future. Another type of node is a specialty node. Specialty nodes, such as Alejandro Farm, allow you to invest into a specialty if you have a rank 1 house. Unfortunately, this is sort of dead content in Black Desert, as many don't do the housing investment as much anymore, as well as this is related to trading. So most of the time, you're not going to need to worry about specialty production nodes. However, in Alejandro Farm, I am going to pick up the honey production node. When assigning a worker to a node, it is helpful to view the worker's skills. If you have a worker such as this professional giant right here, who has farming knowledge as well as quick movement speed, he might be a better choice than a goblin that doesn't have the same knowledge or production speed when it comes to farming. So it's something you need to look for and adjust as needed depending on what your workers are doing or how quickly you want an item to be returned. If you notice here, this professional worker and this artisan goblin or artisan giant have the same amount of work speed, even though one is an artisan and one is a professional. So that is due to my workers' skills and abilities, and I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to select these professional giant worker right here for this honey production node. I want him to return his items to Heidel, and I'm going to set it to the maximum amount of times so he can continually produce honey for me. If you're just getting started in Black Desert, you may want to take this pumpkin node here at Alejandro Farm. However, many people are going with paprika these days over pumpkin, as paprika is used in multiple different recipes where pumpkin is just a vegetable substitute. Moving on to the next node would be Lynch Farm Ruins. Lynch Farm Ruins is a great node if you are getting started in alchemy, as it gives you Silver Azalea as well as Trace of Savagery and Trace of Hunting. If you do not need these traces or this Silver Azalea, you may not want to invest in this node. I personally am going to take the Trace of Savagery and Hunting investment, as traces are a little bit harder to get in this game. However, I am not going to be taking that Silver Azalea, as I have a massive surplus and do not need any more of it at the moment. You also want to check some of these items are extremely cheap to get on the market and may not be worth your time to invest in, where you can save those contribution points to use elsewhere. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select that, make sure he's going to Heidel, and start working for those traces again. Northern Plains of Serendia is the next one on the list. Again, this is a really good one if you are just starting out in alchemy and you need red tree lumps or you need Silver Azalea. Personally, I'm going to go ahead and skip out on this node, as it is not used in a node connection to anywhere else and really no reason for me to invest in it. Moving south of Heidel, we have Moretti Plantation. This is another great node if you are getting started and want to cook a lot of beer or things like that in cooking. However, not really a great node for those who are already pretty invested in Black Desert or aren't really interested in cooking or the basics of cooking, because again, wheat is really only used for dough and it is used for beer. It's also really cheap to get on the market. So personally, I would skip out on Moretti Plantation, as it doesn't connect to any other node and there's really no need for us to invest in it. Costa Farm is a great node, again, for starting out. You have wheat, you have flax, you have pumpkin. Again, probably not one that I'm going to take in the beginning here. However, I may need to take it if I want to connect to Northern Swamp. Northern Swamp does have dwarf mushrooms, and dwarf mushrooms are needed in alchemy. I do need to connect to the previous node for that. The previous node for that is Moretti Plantation. So I'm going to go ahead and invest in Moretti Plantation. I'm not going to take the wheat or the flax, and I'm going to invest in Northern Swamp and take only the dwarf mushroom. Make sure I change it to the maximum amount of times, and I will start my worker. So from here, I have a really basic investment started. Northern Gateway, again, not going to invest in that because I do not need to go to Castle Ruins. I don't really have a reason to invest in this node anymore. This is another type of node that you will see. These are hunting grounds. When you invest in hunting grounds, they give you a better drop rate for the hunting ground area. So again, if I was still doing Castle Ruins, I would take Eastern Gateway and connect to Castle Ruins. However, I don't really use this area anymore, so I'm not going to invest in Castle Ruins. And that is pretty much most of it for when it comes to Heidel. Let's take a look at the outskirts of Heidel. You've got the northern plains of Serendia. Again, Silver Azalea, probably not going to need to invest in that node. This is another fort moving in Northern Gateway, which will connect to Glish. We do need to connect to Glish, so let's see what our fastest connection would be. If we look here, it's 3 contribution points using Northwestern Gateway, as well as 3 contribution points for Central Gateway. I'm going to go ahead and take Central Guard Camp here for the 3 contribution points to connect to Glish. Now I'm connected from Heidel to Glish, connecting my node networks together. You always want to make sure that your cities are connected together in some sort of way so that you can have a worker travel from one city to another as needed. We're going to go to the north of Heidel right now, and we're going to connect to Velia. Now, there's really only one way to do this. We're going to do Heidel Pass, which is another 3 contribution points, and then we're going to check to see what we have here. Going into Velia, you do have Balanos Forest, which is a great node, again, if you are starting out in alchemy and you need sunrise herbs as well as spirit leaves. Personally, really not anything I need from this node, so I'm not going to invest in it, but that is a good node for beginners. Going here, we have arrow mushrooms. Arrow mushrooms are useful, however, they are very plentiful, so I'm personally not going to invest in arrow mushrooms. I'm also not going to invest in Goblin Cave here, which is going to be for translucent crystal as well as spirit leaves. Again, these are great nodes if you're going to be beginner in Black Desert. You need the spirit leaf, or you need to get maybe copper for pushing your processing mastery. But for me, at my stage, it is not worth me picking up Goblin Cave. Going over here to Iwaz Hill. Iwaz Hill does have fortune teller mushrooms as well as ash sap. So I will be investing into Iwaz Hill, but first I need to make sure Velia is connected. Velia connected through the Forest of Plunder and that mushroom node. So I'm going to go ahead and invest my contribution here. I'm going to take the fortune teller mushroom node, make sure I'm connected to Velia. Let me just see if I have any workers here that have farming knowledge before I move on. Yep, I have a goblin worker here with farming knowledge. I want this to go to Heidel. So we're going to take that. We're going to change his amount of times worked. And we are going to start work. All right. And then next thing here, same situation. I want my human here. I want him to go to Heidel with his production. And I want to make sure he continually does that. So just like that, we are invested for ash sap and we are invested for fortune teller mushrooms, which are used in alchemy. Finto Farm is a tricky one. So you might be worth investing in Finto Farm, especially early out, as you have a chicken production node, which will give you chicken and eggs, as well as potatoes, which are used for flour and dough. This node is also kind of important as it's been used recently in a lot of events that you have to invest in. So do be prepared to put investment points or 2 investment points into Finto Farm, as you probably are going to need it for future events. However, right at this moment, I'm not going to invest in Finto Farm, and I'm also not going to invest into Kron Castle Site, as that is just sunrise herbs. Again, if you're just getting started in alchemy, great investment for you to get started in sunrise herbs so you can make the base reagents. However, personally, I am going to skip it right now. I'm also going to skip Kron Castle, as no one grinds Kron Castle anymore, and you do not need to invest into this hunting ground. Another type of node we haven't talked about yet are just pure connection nodes. We haven't really run into any of those at the moment, but they do exist. They're nodes that have 0 production value, such as Olvia Coast right here. This node has no production value, no value to your node network beyond to connect to cities, but you will usually have to invest in them just to get your connection to the next city. Moving to some of the other locations, again, we're going to look. Bartali Farm is chicken, egg, potato. We're probably not going to invest in that. Do we need translucent crystals? No. And Toscani Farm is corn. Again, corn is very good if you're getting started. However, we're going to skip out on corn. And we are going to see that we do need to connect to the Forest of Seclusion. The Forest of Seclusion gives you Powder of Flame, which is used in alchemy, and it also allows us connection to Ancient Stone Chamber. We need to connect to Ancient Stone Chamber as our primary destination, so we're going to use the node connection tool. We're going to connect a node directly using the button below. Let me go ahead and move my avatar just so you guys can see what we're looking at real quick. All right, so if we click the button right here, connection node directly, you're going to connect that. You're going to select Ancient Stone Chamber, and we want it to connect to Velia, and we're going to preview. So we need 7 contribution points to connect to Ancient Stone Chamber from Velia using this route right here that is now highlighted in red. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select Connect Node, and it's automatically going to connect us using our character's energy to the Ancient Stone Chamber. From there, at the Ancient Stone Chamber, I'm going to go ahead and move my avatar again. 1 second. Hi, guys. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go to the Ancient Stone Chamber, and we are going to connect to the Excavation node to get the Trace of Earth, then the Trace of Extension. So, invest contribution, select the worker. I'm going to use a Artisan Goblin out of Velia. I would like to... Artisan Goblin out of Velia, and we're going to start work. Change the amount of times. There we go. And start work. And then as well as Force of Seclusion, I actually like both of these. Monk branches are very good for alchemy. I'm not going to take this though because I do have quite a lot of these. However, this is a good production node. Lumber is always a good value for contribution. However, for right now, we're just going to take this mining node for Powder of Flame, which again is needed for alchemy. We need a bunch of that, so we're just going to go ahead and take that. From there, Western Guard Camp doesn't really provide anything for us. We're not going to invest into Western Guard Camp. We are going to invest into these 2 Powder of Flame nodes here. And I believe we have to do that through Logia Farm. But again, using the node connection tool here, we're going to connect the nodes of Imp Cave to Velia using the fastest connection route as shown here and connect. And we will then go to Imp Cave and invest into the 2 Powder of Flame nodes for 1 contribution point each. As you will notice, I do not have... Oop, we did not set that up right. We want to go ahead and change that to... So here's a problem. We have run into our first issue. We are out of good workers at Velia. So we should probably head over to Velia and invest in some better workers, or we can use the nearby city of Olvia. Olvia to Imp Cave is a bit of a distance, so our worker will take longer to produce items if we go that route, or we can head over to Velia and roll for some workers. So let's go ahead and do that. Once in Velia, I'm going to locate the work supervisor named Santomanzi. If you are unsure how to find him, there's multiple ways, but the first one is to locate the pickaxe on your map, or you can go to the top of your screen using the search function, and you can look for work supervisor, which is located right here as worker, will lead you directly to the NPC. Once at the NPC, you can speak with him and you can contract workers. But as you can see, I'm unable to hire any more workers as my worker slots are full. We can do a couple different things to alleviate the situation. First things first, we want to make sure that we have enough workers that we are using, and we're actually using all of our workers. I have a naive worker that I really don't want anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to recover all of my workers here. Okay. And I'm going to locate the town of Velia and see what workers I have. So these are all of the workers I have in Velia. And as you notice, I have a naive worker. I don't really want naive workers anymore in my stage of Black Desert. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this worker to alleviate a worker slot, and that'll free up that slot for future workers. Then I'm going to go ahead and talk to Santomanzi, and using my worker energy, I'm going to contract a worker. I have 528 energy to roll for a worker, so I'm going to hit enter and view continuously. I would like a worker that is at least professional, so I'm going to say professional and up, and I'm going to tell him to roll up to 104 times until he lands on a professional worker. I'm going to hit view continuously and allow the game to roll workers for me. This can take a little bit of time, so we might have to just sit back and wait for that to happen. Give it a second here. If you have multiple characters, you can keep doing this until you roll a worker that you desire. And we've actually lucked out and gotten an artisan human worker, which is better than we wanted. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. So I'm going to use 900 silver here to hire this artisan human worker. Now, I need more than just one worker though. So I'm going to go ahead and hit M. I'm going to locate Velia on my map, and I'm going to look at the housing here to see if I can purchase more lodging that will allow me to get more workers. So for 1 contribution point, if I go to Velia 1 or room 2, I can purchase the lodging. I will select level 2, and this will allow me to select up to 2 more workers that I can use for Velia. And then I'm going to repeat the process with Santomanzi in order to get 2 more workers, professional or higher, that I can use to then invest in my node network. While my workers are contracted, I'm able to then continue on connecting my nodes to get to the next city. I want to connect Olivia. Olivia is not a lot that I need from there. However, Olivia is used to connect to Port Eferia. So I will look at some of the nodes here in Olivia to see if they are worth investing in. Personally, though, I think I'm actually going to skip out on Olivia unless I need the Olivia workers down the line in order to save some contribution points. I am going to go ahead and pick up the Coastal Cliff and Coastal Cave for those powders. So invest contribution here. I want Powder of Darkness and Powder of Flame. I'm going to invest there and invest there, as well as install workers there. We're going to change that to that. Start. And do the same here, making sure using Velia workers, not Heidel workers. Good, perfect. And move to Coastal Cliff and repeat. Go ahead and pick up that Powder of Darkness. Make sure I'm investing using an artisan worker. Oop, we didn't set the amount of times. Investing an artisan worker from Velia. Select. Great. So we are now there. The other one is Fortune Teller Mushrooms. I'm not going to pick up the second Fortune Teller Mushroom node. I think one is good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that, but others may want that node. From there, Western Guard Camp has no value to me, as well as Balanos Rivermouth. Olivia Coast, no value to me. Don't really want grapes from Costa Farm. Whale Farm has olives. Again, copper ore. These are all things I really don't see any value in. So I'm actually going to skip the Olivia region. The only reason I would invest in any of these areas right here is if I need the workers down the line that are housed within Olivia. Most likely, though, looks like I'm not really using Olivia for anything. It looks like I was just using it as a storage for elixirs. So we're going to go ahead and skip out on Olivia at the moment. And we're going to move to the next major city here, which is one of the biggest contribution areas of the entire game. Spanning this entire area right here, we're going to go work on Calpheon City. Calpheon City is going to be where primarily a lot of our contribution is going to be going into. There's a lot of wood and sap, which is used for trading, as well as alchemy, as well as a few cooking nodes that we are definitely going to want to pick up. So we're going to go ahead and open our map here and start looking at Calpheon City. The first one that we are going to look into is we're going to head to the north, and we are going to try to connect Heidel to Calpheon. So let's go ahead using our connection node directly. We're going to connect Calpheon City to Heidel. And we are going to preview that. There's 8 different nodes that we're going to have to connect to. It's going to take 50 contribution points. Oh boy. And we're going to go ahead and connect those here. Let's see if there's any other way of doing it any faster. Looks like there's not. So let's go ahead and invest Heidel to Calpheon. Let's check the nodes along the way from Heidel to Calpheon and see if any of these are worth our time and investment. Going from there, Northern Plain is Red Tree Lums, Silver Azalea. We're going to go ahead and skip out on that. You can actually look at them without clicking, just by hovering over it. There's a couple of ones through here like Cedar Timber and Monk Branch. You might want to pick the Cedar node up if you're planning on doing trading crates. Personally, I do not, so I'm not going to pick that one up. This is a connection node, and then Fails Dirt Farm, again, is a specialty node. We're not going to grab anything from there. So this is just a straight connection node. Nothing really of value in that beyond getting our items from Calpheon to Heidel, which, again, pretty important. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to connect Comet Sylvia to Heidel. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select Grana, and we're going to select Calpheon City. And we're going to make sure our nodes get connected. We're going to use 24 contribution points to go from Calpheon City to Grana. And we're going to connect that node. Going to take a little process there, and then we're going to follow that node path and see if any of these are worth investing in. So not really too much going down the line here until we get to Bear. Bear is where things start to be useful. We are going to want to grab all of the sap nodes that we possibly can. So let's go ahead and click off of that. And we're going to go ahead and invest in the Cedar Timber node right here in Calpheon City. And we are going to take that and start our worker here for the Cedar Sap. Going from there, we are going to go to Comso Vicinity, nothing there. Lemuria Guard Post, nothing there. Gonna ignore the specialty sheet music. Don't need anything here. You can decide whether you want to keep Monchon Forest. Obviously, we are doing that to connect to Grana, but you can invest energy on there if you're still working on your MP pot. So that is a good hunting zone to have, as well as you can take the Powder of Earth from right here, which I do like to take for another 2 contribution points. Now this is closer to Grana, so I'm actually going to pick Old Wisdom Tree since it's a closer node, and take an artisan worker from Old Wisdom Tree and put them onto this Powder of Earth node. And that's pretty much all of the nodes going from Calpheon to Heidel here that we need the direct contribution from. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to connect again, gonna go make sure all of our major cities are connected. We're going to connect Heidel to Altanova. This will be important later because we're going to be using a lot of contribution going forward in this region. So we want to make sure that we have connected all of the cities beforehand so we know how much contribution we actually have to work with once we get zone. So we're going to go through again. We're going to check the nodes that are connected. Don't really need tiger mushrooms or flax, so I'm going to skip this node. I don't need cotton wool, yarn, aloe, so we skip that one. This one, Stonehill Horse Ranch. I actually do like to take a node in Stonehill Horse Ranch from time to time, which is going to be this node all the way down here, which is the Horse Gear Workshop. This is used for crafting Krogdalo gear, so you can decide if you want to pick that up now. I personally don't invest the energy ahead of time, so I'm going to skip that one for now, and I am just going to make sure I have my connection directly to Altanova. I am actually going to, while I'm thinking about it, pick up Kasula Farm. And the reason I'm picking up Kasula Farm is I want the cinnamon production node, which is used in crafting. Now, here's the thing about investing when you don't go to the actual node. If you have a value pack, it uses your energy. I am personally out of energy, so I must now swap characters to continue my investment process. From here, it gets a little bit tricky. I personally am not going to choose to invest all the way to Valencia, as I am not taking crates from Grana to Valencia. I don't really use them for trading, so I don't really see the need to waste all of the contribution points to invest into the Valencia region. So I'm going to handle the Valencia region and the region of the Land of the Loring Might kind of separately from my other regions in Black Desert, as I don't need them to be directly connected due to workers or things like that, as I have specific workers already in that region. I can also handle Duvenkroon in the same sort of fashion. I can connect Duvenkroon, Duvenkroon, Mountain of Eternal Winter, and Odalita together, but I don't need to necessarily connect them to Heidel or Calpheon or Grana. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have Duvenkroon connected to Elton. And then I'm going to connect Duvenkroon again to Odraxia. Sometimes you have to unclick it. So go there, starting node of Duvenkroon, and we are going to have the end node of Odraxia. This one's a little bit tricky, so it does take a lot of node investment to get to Odraxia. So if I don't want to connect Duvenkroon to Odraxia, I could also see if it's more energy or more contribution efficient to connect Kama Sylvia to Odraxia. And so that one is only slightly more contribution efficient, but we're going to go ahead and take that. We're going to connect the nodes. The last thing that we're going to do is we are going to make sure that all of the major regions that we grind in are also connected. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the grind spots that I traditionally grind in and make sure that I have connections to those. So the first one that I'm going to make sure I have connected is a Gyfin Rihasa Temple, which is for Gyfin Lower. I'm going to go ahead and connect that, include previous invested nodes, and we will see if we can connect that to Grana. Pretty simple connection. We're going to go ahead and connect that node. The other node that we're going to need to connect, let's manually to do that. Okay, that's fine. The other node that we're going to need to connect is we're going to need to connect Ash Forest, as I did quite a bit of grinding in Ash Forest. So we're going to go ahead and connect our Ash Forest node here. And the fastest connection to that is going to be Calpheon City. Going to connect those nodes together. Sometimes it does need a little bit of help along the way, and you just have to go in and hit that last connection node for it. We're not going to grab Loopy Tree Forest, don't really have any reason for that. And then we are going to go all the way out here to Crescent Shine, a little too far. We're going to go to the new region. We're going to make sure we connect Asparcan to Altanova. So let's go ahead and connect Asparcan to Altanova so that we can get the two regions connected so that we can grind in City of the Dead and in Towngrad Ruins so that we can get our compass pieces. So we're going to make sure we want to have Tamarin Hill and Towngrad Ruins connected. So we're going to use Asparcan still. Asparcan here. We're going to connect City of the Dead, which is Tamarin Hill. We're going to connect those nodes together. And then we are going to do the same thing using vested nodes. We're going to go from Asparcan to the Carmelin Wilds. That's so hard to say, but we actually want to go to Towngrad Ruins all the way down here, which is going to connect these nodes together. Very contribution efficient, so not too much of a worry there. But we have our grind spots connected. From there, I'm just going to check and make sure there's not too many other spots that we grind. We might do some of the connections down in here. I don't particularly find myself grinding Primal Giants or Hex Sanctuary, but those are ones people like to pick up, as well as Quint Hill. So if you find yourself grinding in those areas, you might want to grab any of those nodes. Personally, though, those are not really areas I'm grinding in. The other one I definitely know I'm going to need is I will need the Dekia places. So I'm going to make sure I invest in Thornwood Forest as well as Olin's. So let's go ahead and make sure we grab Olin's Valley. And let's make sure we go ahead and we grab Crypt of Resting Thoughts. We already have that. And make sure we have Thornwood Forest already invested. So we want to make sure we have all of these zones invested, as those are my primary grind spots. And I want to make sure I have the contribution available before I start investing in the rest of my nodes before I go there. The next region, though, that is extremely important for your node network is going to be the Land of the Morning Light. We want to go ahead and make sure we have our crystals invested. We're able to grab those crystal locations. And if you want to do any cooking in the Land of the Morning Light, as it's very efficient for making cooking boxes, you could also do that. The first one you are going to absolutely make sure you have is Dokebi Forest. Dokebi Forest is the biggie. We want to make sure we get all of the previous nodes invested. So first off, we are going to invest contribution. It's very cheap contribution here. It's only one contribution. We don't need to pick up any of these nodes as they don't really have any value to them. And then we're going to pick Dokebi Forest. Dokebi Forest is an interesting node. You can only employ Dokebi workers here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick my artisan Dokebi worker, and I'm going to tell him to do the maximum amount of times, and he's going to start working on this node here, which gives us forest crystals, which are used for life skilling crystals. This is a very important node. You may also want to consider investing energy into this node so you have a higher chance to build specialty items such as those crystals. The next extremely important node, again, it's just from Dokebi Forest, is to pick up the Crystal of Harmony node. We're going to go ahead and invest in that. And again, use an artisan Dokebi worker. Always make sure you have your Dokebi workers for here. No other workers can work in the Dokebi Forest. From there, you can decide if you want to pick up any of the other ones. Some people will pick up this one right here because it does give you crystals of bitterness and darkness, which are good money. I personally do like to grab these, so I'm going to go ahead and grab those nodes right here. I'm going to throw another worker on that right there and start work, so we have a nice investment there. I'm not going to pick up Dry Branch Village as it doesn't give me any value. I am not going to pick up the Institute. Again, no value for me. From here as well, don't need bracken. That can be really helpful though if you guys are cooking, I believe Drigan meals use bracken, so this isn't bracken node as there are not too many of them. It's a good node for your money. It's a very cheap investment for bracken. So again, if you are doing a lot of cooking, this is a really good node to pick up right here. Don't need Shimmy Day Forest, doesn't really give me any value. I don't need the gateway. This node right here, Himeo Island, that is up to you if you want to pick up more Traces of Memory or Mysterious Powder. Traces of Memory are in fact pretty hard to get. I am personally not going to invest in it only because I do a lot of Gython lower grinding and I don't find myself needing Traces of Memory as often as other people. So I'm not going to go ahead and grab that node. I'm also not going to grab the island as I do not plan to connect this all the way back to the mainland as that is a waste of contribution. Going forward, Buyout County can be really useful if you are planning on making those cooking boxes. What you want to do is you want to take these 3 nodes right here. These 3 nodes will allow you to make the cooking boxes that are very cheap in Land of the Morning Light. I personally am not going to grab them just because I'm a little bit light on contribution. So I'm not going to grab these nodes right now, but down the line I may grab these nodes as they are very cheap, only 1 contribution point to get 3 nodes here, 3 contribution points to make cooking boxes. This node right here, this has no value. We do not grab that one, do not need it. If you guys are working on your boat from Land of the Morning Light, then you would want to grab this one right here as it gives you the blueprints for it, as well as Starlight Powder, Mysterious Powder. Really important note if you're planning on doing any shipbuilding. I personally am not going to grab that as I have a lot of those items already and do not need it. Going forward, Bari Forest, not a ton of value from Bari Forest unless you just want some cedar timber. I'm going to skip out on Bari Forest as it's not needed, but I am going to go ahead and take the Valley here as I want this Crystal of Decimation node. I'm going to go ahead and invest in the Crystal of Decimation node, and I'm going to find the best worker I can, which is this Shellfolk worker. I personally want him to go to the village here. Maybe Buyout County, that'll work. Go ahead and send him to Nopse Buyout County and start working for him. Beyond that though, not really anything good here besides maybe maple sap. Again, in really cheap maple sap mode. If you need it, go ahead and grab that. Again, kind of low in contribution, so not going to do that. That's really going to wrap up my entire contribution investment for Land of the Morning Light. So really cheap investment area. They do have some nice stable investments you can do. There's a really nice path that you can follow right here, that you can literally follow this entire outline right here. It's completely all in safe zone if you're horse training. So I did go ahead and pick up the stable node here so I could have more horses within the stable, as I use this primarily for horse training. So that is another investment you may want to make in this area. From there, we are going to then start working on purely contribution as to what we want our nodes to be, and this goes down to personal preference. A very good area in Calpheon City that you may want to start investing in heavily is the area of Trent. Trent gives you a lot of saps as well as timber and silk grass, things like that are used in alchemy. So you want to go node by node in this area and decide what items that you personally need. Just for the sake of this video, because it's running a little bit long, we're not going to go ahead and go node by node from there. But at this point, what you do is you start following the node paths that you've just connected from all the cities. And we're just going to go ahead and go node by node personally and figure out what is the best nodes for us, checking the nearby nodes as well. I always want to pick up nodes that give me traces, powders, saps. And then for cooking, I want to pick up nodes that give me paprika, cinnamon, honey. I might want to pick up a chicken and egg, probably not, and then you may want to grab bracken as well. Beyond that, up in the Valencia region up here, there are a few nodes that are very useful. You might want to invest into Valencia Plantation as well as Palam Farm. These right here are used for Valencia mules, as well as date palm over here at Aradel Farm. So again, these 3 might be good to pick up if you're doing a lot of production cooking for Valencia mules, which are some of the best value mules in the game. And you may want to pick up coconuts as well from our palm forest, Ariha palm forest. So those are also ones that you might want to consider grabbing if you're doing production in cooking for Valencia mules. The other thing you might want to grab is Raud Sulfur Works if you are working on getting your map, which will also then allow you down here if you want to connect to Pilakut Jail if you're working on your map for your relics. Beyond that, though, it's personal preference. Some people will also take the water nodes that are through this area here in Medaya. Medaya has a couple of nodes that give you bag of muddy water or purified water. I personally don't grab these nodes as you can get purified water from Sandgrain Bazaar. So I don't see it's worth my contribution. Again, as I only have 90 contribution points to work with at this point, I don't want to grab nodes that I can buy items from very easily. That's the reason I don't invest into fruit nodes, as there's a fruit vendor in Calpheon. I don't see the need to invest in fruit nodes. I will invest in paprika. I will not invest in other vegetables, as well as I will not invest in wheat. I will not invest in flax, things like that can be easily purchased from the market in massive quantities that I don't need to invest my hard-earned contribution points into. But that is my brief tutorial, not so brief, about 30 minutes plus tutorial on how to invest in node networks in Black Desert Online. If you guys have any questions, you can ask below. I know it might seem a little fast and a little rushed, but we're just trying to get you guys the bare bone basics on how node networks work. And from there, I'm going to let you guys spread your wings and figure it out. You guys can join me Monday, Wednesday, Friday on twitch.tv/MilkTVT if you want to see me live going over things like node networks or grinding Gyphon lower, playing Sucks Your Kanya, all those fun things. I will see you there. If not, if you like this video, please go ahead, give me a like, subscribe, and I will try to do more videos like this in the future. But thank you guys so much for joining me on a very basic introduction on node networks in Black Desert Online.